hear me? This is Jessie Paul. I'm the CEO of Paul Writer, and we are hosting this program today in association with Manipal Pro Learn for the Win and Talent Chronicles. And thank you so much for joining us today for this conversation. It is a topic that is extremely relevant to everyone. And the perspective that we are going to talk about here today is really how do we move upwards and onwards by reskilling. But before we get started, I kind of wanted to put a little bit of context, which is the glass ceiling. Yes, we've all heard about it, read about it, but and there is only so much you can, expect from the external world. But what about the glass ceiling in our own minds? Because often we don't grab the opportunities that are best for us or look at ways to make our own destiny because we personally don't have the confidence that we should go and ask for what we want. Often we don't have the credibility that, yes, I really should get this role because I'm the most qualified. And the third part is, we probably don't have the certifications or the proof that give us the confidence to say that, the ceiling is not for me. I really need to get this particular opportunity. So what we're going to do today is in the form of a conversation, and we have two expert speakers with us. We have Dr. Mamta Bandar, who's a professor with Manipal Global Next University and the director of the Women's Leadership Program. And we're also privileged to have with us Richa Dubey, who's the director of Human Resources for Schneider India. And what we're going to do is have a conversation which is partly about, their journeys as well as what they see as things that potentially hold us back, and how do we actually overcome that by rising above that, mainly by skilling ourselves, being credible, being confident, and really looking at ways to shape our own destiny, which I think that's really the core of what we want to do. We want to be where we want to be, regardless of any external barriers or internal barriers. And that's really what we're going to talk about. So the format is that we're first going to hear from Richa Dubey, and then that's followed by Dr. Mamta. But during these two sessions, if you have any questions at all, just put it in the chat window, and either the speaker or I or the other speaker will respond to you on the chat window. And towards the end, we also have a dedicated time just for Q&A. And the Q&A can be anything that's close to your heart and you want to learn from this topic. Quick housekeeping before we get started: do keep yourself on mute, and we do not need your video to be on. It'll be more convenient for you as well. And the recording will be shared with you on the email address with which you registered, so no worries about that. And again, at any moment you have a question, just put it in the chat window or mail it to me personally, and we will take it up during this discussion. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Richa Dubey, who's the Director of Human Resources for Schneider India.
Thank you so much, Jessie, for that introduction, and welcome everybody. So I will just share my screen and then we'll start talking. Please give me a second. Can you all see my screen? Hello?
Not yet.
Can you now?
Yes, it's come.
Oh, great. Thank you for that. So welcome once again, and good afternoon to everybody. On the occasion of Women's Day, when Jessie Paul and her team, the Paul Writers, reached out to me to speak on this very interesting topic, breaking the glass ceiling with upskilling.
Sorry, Richa, I need to interrupt you. The screen has now gone back. I think you've taken it off.
No, I'm very much there. Is it visible now?
No.
Okay. I am sharing it now. See, can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to put it on slideshow. I hope this is better. Can you see now? Is it fine?
Yes, perfect.
Oh, great. So thank you. Thanks, everybody. So don't know why it is coming here. Okay. Can we somehow mitigate this? Okay. So so
Yes,
when
your
when
screen is
when
full screen. It's perfect. Go ahead.
it's fine? Okay,
Yep,
good.
perfect.
So what I was thinking is there a glass ceiling? That's one thing I really doubt every time. And also during the occasion of Women's Day, women don't need a rangoli competition or a cooking competition or discussing amongst themselves as to how to balance work and life. I think as Indian women and as women in general, we have crossed that barrier long back. And I like to hear about what are we doing next. How are we upskilling ourselves to really move further ahead in life and to break any ceiling for that matter and to define our own benchmarks? And that is very important for me. Having said this, I'm going to put up a video for you, which would be slightly contradictory because let's listen to some of the world leaders on what they have to say. And that is very contradictory of what I said just now. So can you please start it, Shambhavi? And if it doesn't work, then I have a gist of it which I can talk about.
No, I think the screen has come up.
Come up, yep. So let's play it. Volume, volume, please. Volume, please. Your laptop volume, I think. Your laptop volume. You still can't hear. Your laptop volume has to be increased. While the video comes up, let's just go a little bit ahead. So when the World Economic Forum and what they have to say about it is something very interesting. They still feel, and the result shows that it will still take at least 217 years for the women to have parity when it comes to pay equity. That's a long, long time. But Shambhavi, is the video coming up?
And then I need to
Okay.
play the video, right?
Yeah. So, and it is going to take 217 years, which is a long time. There are only two countries in the world who have family, who have parental leave as 90% of the men take paternity leave. That is very interesting. Okay.
Resume share.
Men's wages are rising faster and further. At this rate, it could be another 217
Can
years
you see?
before equal pay.
Yes, it's coming now along with the volume.
And it's not just money. Women have a long way to go before their political power matches that of men. Former US President Barack Obama reportedly made a call for more women leaders because men seem to be having some problems these days. But when it comes to women in parliament, only Iceland has closed more than 70% of its gender gap, with Norway and Sweden following closely behind, which may explain their balanced approach to working life and family-friendly policy. In both countries, roughly 90% of fathers take parental leave.
Not maternal leave policies, but family leave policies so that a man and a woman can take time off.
Just as there is at home, there's also a need for more balance in the workplace, particularly in STEM-related careers where men dominate.
Of course I'm frustrated. Of course I am.
Gender parity makes economic sense. In the United Kingdom, it would mean adding $250 billion to the GDP, 320 billion in France, 550 billion in Japan, and 2.5 trillion in China. Do we really have to wait 217 years for the world to change?
So we heard the world leaders, and it's this little bit technical glitches. Pardon us for that. Moving on from here. But a very interesting study was done by PwC, where they covered women between the age of 28 to 40. And this was done in 2018. So the most recent as it could be. This study shows that, okay, so before we get into it, this covers the women in Africa and Asia in particular are determined to succeed. That's the crux of the matter. So no matter how the situation is, women themselves are extremely determined today to outgrow themselves and to perform at their best. They are at the point at their working lives where the gap between men and women progression begins to widen dramatically at the age of 28 to 40, and the challenges of combining careers and personal priorities increase. Okay, these are women who live around the world and variety of cultures they are representing, and you see how what the data is showing here. Okay, these are women who work in different kind of background, something like, you know, healthcare and education, where we always thought women worked. At the same time, technology and aerospace, which we thought was not a women's world. Okay, what it is representing is women are more confident and ambitious and eager for career progression and success. Especially women in the emerging economies have even more higher level of confidence, and this high aspiration is a reason for hope for the world, that it will not take 217 years to change things, but will change sooner than later. Okay, so this is a very, very happy state to be in, especially if you see Asia and Africa, where the global economic shift is happening. The center of the world is shifting to this part of the world, and this is how women are charged up to change it and make career their priority. Let's come to workplace. This was in general, overall, what women want. But in workplace, what do they want? The same data shows it covered around 3,627 professional women. Okay, and it shows that there are three key elements that the business leaders must focus to advance gender equality and help women's career advancement. That is transparency, trust more, and support network and advocate them. So three things: transparency, trust, and support network. Women need strategic support. Okay, the challenges with family, balancing care, work are there are grave concerns regarding flexibility and motherhood penalties. So can organizations help balance all these things out, not just for women, but for all the employees? And 58% of women are asking for more transparency, as the data is showing here. 82% women are confident in their ability to fulfill their career aspirations. And only 60% women think that managers understand that they need support. At the same time, only 48% of new mothers returning to work felt overlooked for promotions and special projects. That means there's still hope. So overall, if I just recollect what I spoke about in the last few minutes, the World Economic Forum has definite substantiated data. At the same time, in 2018, when we look at women and how professional women have looked at their own career and taken charge of their own aspirations, we see the metrics shifting. So how do we make women more future ready? What do we do? I think there are three things that can help us change with this, and I relate very well to it as being a career aspirant myself, being a woman from a small town and being ambitious. That means you have to really fight around so many other prejudices around you than to just determine a career and aspire for it. What helped me? I think what helped is education, the three E's, what we talk about: exposure and experience. Never stop educating yourself, whether it is through classroom sessions, e-learning the way we are doing it, the digital connect, or self-study. And I'm a person who believed a lot in self-study. Just to share my own story, my own preparation for entrance tests, whether it was for the Indian administrative examinations or it was for my MBA entrance tests, I think I did it a lot on my own. I don't think at that time we could afford so many tutorials, careers, support, guidance, but we did it on our own. And what helped me was a lot of support in this front on how I educated myself and learning through social interactions. Never miss out on that. That is whether as a woman, are you exposed to business leaders when you are already working? Are you exposed? Are you in touch with internal or industry experts, colleagues, customers, and communities? That's very important. Are we learning through them? Are we connecting? Are we interacting? Are we letting the inhibitions go and reaching out? And as a woman, let me tell you, I think it helps. It helps to network. It helps to connect. It helps to get diverse exposure. And very important, and not to miss out, learning through work activities on the job, which are like normal workplace activities, which help you provide development experiences. We'll go a little bit more in detail in here. So I spoke about it. The different ways we can do it: self-study, acads, country local programs, or online. I spoke about it earlier also. Another very important part when it comes to exposure is feedback and evaluation, or participating in corporate projects, workshops, which many time I have seen girls, especially many of our generation, I've seen hesitating. But
Hello.
today, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
So please, can you be on mute, please? Can I continue?
Yeah, please. I'm really
Okay.
sorry.
Okay, no issues. So, and what we have realized it, these girls and the younger generation of the women, I really see them coming ahead. Recently, we were doing a project for the GETs and people with less than 2 years experience, and I was very, very surprised at how the best of the cream were the women who were driving these projects, delivering it, and preparing themselves for the leadership pipeline we are building at Schneider. I really appreciate this kind of things when organizations do to grow talent. And I'm again talking from a very gender neutral point of view, but I've seen women taking a lead into it, which also the data supports, showing how they are aspired for a strong career. And not to miss out experience. The normal workplace activities I spoke about: coaching, mentoring, tutoring others, managing a community, taking up stretch projects, newer responsibilities or extended responsibilities, or cross-functional assignment. And another important thing which helps upskilling is not just education, experience, and exposure, but how are you working on the defined skill sets? This is a very effective way to break any ceiling for that matter. So honing up existing skills, what does it mean? That just means get more adept at what you already know. And the best thing is do the best in your present job, the one that you have in hand. Every person or every employee has those core strengths which should be used to the maximum, and do not let any complacency set in here, and that is honing existing skills and building on your skill sets. Coming to the second point, expanding your skill sets and competencies at a domain level and at an industry level does help us push those boundaries. So learn and acquire new or adjacent skills, grab every opportunity to equip yourself and add to your career profile, add, and then obtain certificates on emerging technologies or invest in relevant online courses. So people who value their careers, they don't just adapt to the skills required for present job, but they build on their skill sets for the next level. And I have seen as the pyramid tapers up on the top, the people who make it, the people who really continue to do well. I'm not just talking about vertical growth, but people who continue to do well are the ones who have kept their skills relevant and updated. And we ourselves would have seen um, information technology coming in and now transiting into digitals. A lot of things have happened in the last 20 years. So all the people who have made it through, who are still, aspiring for a career, are the ones who have kept themselves updated with the latest technology and have kept their skills to the max relevant that they could do. And not to miss out, how do you future proof your career? By adapting to new technologies, new things, new ways, and keep your mind open for experiences, which are which are not, which might not be in your domain. Are you open to learning from your younger colleagues? Are you open to that? uh, Today we live in a civilizated society. Are you open to learning from your colleagues? It's very important that your future career wait till we upgrade our human skills: problem solving, dealing with ambiguity, critical thinking, negotiation or influencing, and very important, emotional intelligence. I recall recently meeting a CEO of one of the new organizations, and he was talking about how he has a mentor who is from a very different organization, and how he's taking up mentoring lessons from that senior person on people skills, because he didn't had that much exposure to people skills, but definitely he could do a great job in business and upscaling his business. Similarly, I have seen my colleagues, and in fact, very interestingly, she's a vice president in an organization, and she has two mentors who are much, much younger to her, who are like the younger generation. And that is helping. So what is this lady doing? She is future proofing her career, because she knows what is the new generation thinking, both not only from the technology point of view, but also from the people point of view. And these are people who can proactive upskill and break the glass ceiling always. And coming to a very important thing, when I make this whole subject relevant to the Indian population, where half of its population is represented by women, we cannot afford to ignore um, ourselves into these senior positions. And it requires proactive effort from organization who should aggressively leverage technology, and how to transform corporate learning to strengthen their competitive advantage and boost profitability. So organizations have definitely a business case. And I like it when a CHRO of a very large firm recently commented saying, why should there be a business case to hire women? Do we have a business case to hire men? Of course, we don't present a business case, right, to hire a man. Similarly, there should not be a business case to hire diversity, gender diversity candidates. It's all about, are we skilled? Are we ready? Are we aspiring? And are we taking charge of our careers and lives? If women, we do it, I don't think we need this kind of conversation ever again. And I'm very happy that we're talking about career today rather than talking about something like a Rangoli competition on the occasion of Women's Day. I started from there and I conclude there. So thank you all for listening to me, and I'm open to any questions. I hope it was relevant to you.
Richa, yes, that was fantastic. I found it very engaging and you opened up a lot of perspectives. So thanks so much for that. And you're absolutely right. When we first started as Women's Day, it was about flowers, candy, and rangoli. So certainly we've moved a long way since then. So this is a great opportunity, and thank you so much for participating in this one. And
Thank you, Jesse. Thank you so much.
great. And what I'm going to ask people is if you can put in the questions here, and we will take it up after the next session. And whatever is on the chat, if something comes up, perhaps you could answer. So with that, I'm going to invite Dr. Mamta Bandar, who's a professor for Manipal Global Next University and the director of Women's Leadership Program, to share her perspectives.
Thank you so much, Jesse. Thanks, Richa. Wonderful talk. It was such a pleasure hearing your view on Women's Day. Okay, so I'll just share my screen, but whilst I do that, I think I'd like to get to know the audience a little bit. So all of you, if you could just in the chat get started and, share a little bit about yourself, how much ever you can. That'll be great. Okay, so I hope my slides are visible and the audio is fine. Hi, Jesse, thank you so much. Yeah, if I can get a green take, the slides and the audio, all good?
Yes, the slides, audio, everything's fantastic. Yep.
Okay, great. So thanks everybody for joining us today. And yes, in advance, happy Women's Day. I'm surprised we have to do this, but yes, we have to. A little bit of background that I want to give. Thanks all for the introductions. I'm reading it, although I might not respond to you, but I'm reading them. So what I want to do first is give you a little bit of background in terms of where my view is coming from, just like what Richa did. Her view was more from the corporate side. Now, I've been in education. Yes, I worked before and then moved to education. And particularly when it comes to our women's leadership program, this is something that I've been involved with for the last 6+ years. We deliver the women's leadership program for corporates, multinational companies, for women in general in an open calendar. It's a very customized kind of program. And over the years, I've probably interacted with 300+ women leaders, potential emerging women leaders. And that is where interacting with them, we have, kind of done a lot of research, collected data, done webinars, listened and heard these women. And that's the perspective I'd like to share with you all today. So like I said, it's women leaders. We started off with training senior women leaders. If you remember a few years back, I don't know how many of you would relate to that. It started off with training senior women leaders, saying, we want to prepare them for leadership. Over the years, suddenly we saw requirements for training potential or emerging. And in the last 2 or 3 years, we get requests for training entry level or mid-career women. So the idea now is that let us intervene beforehand. There is something to intervene. People recognize that they need to intervene, but let's do that early. I'll talk a little bit about that as we go ahead. But that's how things have changed. And that the program allows me and my global faculty to interact with these women over 6 months. Our program runs for 6 months. It's completely online. We have a lot of interaction over webinars like this, but a lot of discussions. And that's when we actually get to hear up close the actual things that these women face. I wouldn't say just the issues and challenges, but a lot of positives as well, some of which Richa already mentioned. The women that we've interacted with come from multiple organizations. I'm specifically highlighting globally distributed. Richa brought this out very beautifully. That I'm talking about women, Asia, US, Canada, Alaska, India, Malaysia, Singapore, everywhere. And a lot of times we'd had the combination of this in one virtual classroom. So it's given us a very different perspective. We would always think that certain issues are probably very much related to Asian women or something. But that kind of gives us a new insight. I'll share that as we go. But that new insight that we get when we bring women from across the globe together to understand, oh, really? They face that as well? That kind of scenario. And like I said, over the last 6 years, I've seen the transition. I myself have had to restructure the program because of the change in requirements, the millennials coming in, the thought process changing, and some of which Richa has already mentioned. Intervention at what point, intervening where, what kind of soft skills, is it functional, and so on. So I'll talk a little bit about that change as well. And like I said, all of this is data that we've gathered from these women participants based on the discussions, our talk with the L&D leaders, and so on. You know, I think most of us, and let me know if you disagree. I'll be happy to, listen to you as well. I myself feel I've been very privileged. I've never had the problem of no access to education or resources, but I do understand that everybody's situation might be different. We still have a lot of strata even if I look at just India itself, there's a lot of strata where some may not have access to all these resources and education. Society, culture, resources, family support, all of that. Things are getting better, definitely. And Richa, your statistics were so encouraging, so good to hear. So we know things have been changing. Yet overall, when we look at the numbers, and for me, when I go down to the micro level, which means one-on-one when I'm interacting with these potential women leaders that are coming to do a program, then I see that at a micro level, on a larger macro level, yes, there are these initiatives, there's government support. I see a lot of great initiatives in companies. I've heard of opportunities being created, women being encouraged to take on leadership roles, flexibility, childcare, support, etc. I'm hearing all the great things. And maybe it's going to take a while for all of this to be institutionalized. I'm saying they're all there, but are they institutionalized? Yeah. Right now, today, I'm going to be very specific. I'm talking about women who are already at the workplace. There are a lot of other women who have quit, who are out, maybe trying to get back in. A lot of women who've not been able to start working for some reason, right? I'm not talking about them right now. I'm going to focus on women at the workplace because that's where my data comes from. And what is the glass ceiling? What is the glass ceiling? I'm not talking about what glass ceiling means to me, but whatever I've seen and how does it manifest in those women that I'm interacting with. A lot of these women want to just keep their jobs, and they are unable to do that for different reasons. It could be, the 3 M's. All of us know the marriage, mobility, and maternity. A lot of times it's also a choice. I've delivered and I want to spend time with my baby, and so I'm taking the time off, or I want to pause and maybe study and re-educate myself, or, upskill, whatever reason. But the glass ceiling manifests in that, because once you get that break, and that's the biggest challenge, getting back and then growing at the rate at which you were becomes difficult. The second way it manifests is in the hesitancy to take on leadership roles. This I've heard, I've seen many a times. I think it's definitely changing, and I'm very happy about that. But I've heard many of them refuse to take leadership roles. Anyone wants to guess what are the reasons? Any of you? I'm sure you've heard of situations. You've probably been in the situations yourself. But yes, I've heard a lot of them refuse to take on leadership roles. So I'm waiting for this chat. Yes, and that's the first point I have here. Work-life balance. In fact, very recently, I concluded 2 women's leadership programs, and I did a study. The study was specifically on women and networking. But even in that study, though it was networking, you know what was the topmost cause that came up why women don't network? Work-life balance. I mean, I'm calling it as work-life balance. Obviously, when they told me their responses, it was, where is the time? I have to go home. And if I attend those talks, then it means who's going to pick up my son from that class, who's going to cook dinner, and simple little things. But all of that comes under that umbrella of work-life balance. Yeah, it was surprising. The study was on networking, and I ended up with a finding of work-life balance. All of you that have said here, yes, support from the family, that so-called support system. Excellent. Mobility, travel. And I've included that point here. The first thing people tell me is, Mamta, if I take up that role, I'll have to travel. And that's very difficult for me with children. So work-life balance. And these are in order. The order I've listed in is in the order of importance that they appeared. Networking and communication skills. I once did a webinar, I think a couple of years back, on women and networking. It was just a random topic that came to my mind. And I have done several such webinars before. But you know how many people turned up for that webinar? 650. And I looked at the comments and the chat and later, and I realized that this is a really serious issue. The kind of questions, obviously I ran out of time to take all the questions, but I invited feedback, and the kind of questions I got were very basic, but they are the real issues that women are facing. Simple things. I'm uncomfortable talking to new people. I'm uncomfortable socializing in new groups. I'm not confident in my language skills. How do I talk to my manager? How do I show empathy to my team members? A whole lot of things. So networking, yes, socializing, the elevator pitch, small talk, all of that. And the regular communication skills, the lack of confidence in the communication skills. I have this, like Richa said, right? It's not just about women. I run these programs for normal first-time managers. And there are places where I've seen networking and communication is not a problem. But in this case, it came up as a priority. And then I thought, so why is it taking so long for these things to manifest? Why do we come to the workplace and then these skills are coming up? Shouldn't our education system, and if you look at India as such, our education is so strong. We go through years of formal education. Somewhere along, if we could bring these kind of skills, that would be a great help to everyone. And one more thing to point out. Remember, I said global audience. These comments came from people from the West as well, the so-called Caucasians, women working outside of India, women, Caucasian women also. So it's not just restricted to India itself. Somewhere, something, I think there is still a gap. Lack of confidence in business skills. People are great. Women are very confident, quick learners when it comes to their own, our so-called silo, my own functional area. But obviously, we don't have much time to pick up the newspaper or do a little bit of research and, widen our kind of knowledge. That is what affects us as well. So when we meet maybe a CEO of another company, we don't know where to start off. We're probably not comfortable talking numbers. Oh, what was your revenue? What were your costs? Oh, were your operating costs too high? Did you decide to outsource? This is all general business talk. That is where the confidence is limited. So when that's limited, you don't approach, you don't talk, right? So that's one thing that came across in that study. And I don't know how to be a leader. I don't know how to manage a team. Oh, what about a global team? The culture is different, the travel, the family. Will I fit in? I don't understand their accent, and things like that. So just that lack of confidence. I think one of you mentioned in the chat as well here. These are things that really come across. Now, this is something that we've heard about. Richa mentioned as well. There's a lot of those external barriers. And like I said, I feel they are being addressed. I feel a lot of work is being done in the last couple of years from every front to address those barriers. But internally, we need to step up. Luckily, there's a lot of awareness today. There's a lot of opportunity, and which I shared in her slides as well. Lot of opportunity, convenient, flexible, from your home for you to upskill. Have all of you seen this cartoon? It was in news recently. I had to share this. I just loved it.
Yes.
I tried to kind of, articulate this for so many years. I've been doing it. But when I saw this, I said, oh my God, he figured out how to say it. I'm currently in that state. Like Jesse knows, my son is in the hospital, just recovering from his appendectomy, and I had to leave him to come home to do this webinar. So we face it on a daily basis. And I'm sure all of you here, even the moms, the dads, everyone face this on a daily basis. So what can we do to do that upskilling? And this is an area also that I feel has not received a lot of attention. We obviously, when I looked at my dad, he was in one job for 30 years, started there, retired there, and things went on. But we know today it's not like that. So then you'll all ask me, so what do I do, Mamta? How do I upskill? What do I learn? And the four areas that I've identified here has come after a lot of thinking, a lot of research, a lot of data. And very nicely, I think that some of them align with what Richa said as well. Like I said, companies now are saying, why not intervene early? I know women drop off maybe after at the typical age, maternity. That is when most of our women kind of quit because that's when they deliver or move house and things like that. So if we intervene early, we help in building a career identity. Now, the problem that came out is, especially in a country like India, we're all very education focused. All of us do very well. Girls, especially, right? We are great at studying and sincerely following and submitting our homework. We are great. Entry level, Richa will agree with me here. Entry level, you get 50% women, 50% men. And things change after that. So the study said that we have an education identity. I know I'm a master's, I know I'm a PhD, I know I'm an engineer, I know I'm a doctor. But career identity, when you meet someone, do you say I'm a project manager? I don't know about you all. It never comes from me. I never say I'm a professor. I say, yes, I teach. That's the most I can say. But let's say I'm at a cricket match for my son's match and I meet someone and I'll say I'm Kayur's mother. So we do struggle with identities. We have several identities. I'm sure the men, I see a lot of men here and you'll agree with me. You have multiple identities as well. But when think about this, okay, think about this. What is the answer that comes to you? What's the first thing you say about your identity? What's that identity on top? Now, if you look at it, different stages of our life, our identity changes. That's the struggle we have. That career is not a part of our core unless until we've, grilled in ourselves. And Richa, your example was fantastic. You've told yourself, that's my career. That's one of my stronger identities. And trust me, ladies, all of you here, once it becomes your identity, you will find a way to keep that going. And that is what we are trying to do. How do people do it? Again, women come and ask me, so how should I do it? How do I plan my career? But how can I predict what's going to happen 3 years later? Very valid questions. And that's one of the areas for upskilling. There are plenty of programs. And this is the structure also of the program, the way we offer it. That at entry level, if you are interested, we tell you, how do you assess? Where are you? Where do you want to be? How do you plan? You plan 5 years, you plan 10 years. What are the skills you need to build? When do you start? How do you develop? How do you manage? So that's also a skill to learn, and there's plenty of material and literature out there and programs like ours. The second area is the social skills. Okay, I've sorted out. I know I want to be there. Most of us take our image for granted, including my social media pages, my LinkedIn profile, my Facebook profile. If I have a Twitter, am I sharing? Why is that important? Well, because you don't have time to go network. You don't have time to go out and attend every drink session or retreat that's being arranged, right? Valid reasons. So use social media. So I tell every participant who comes to the program, download your LinkedIn app. If Facebook is what you use, fair enough, just download the app. So every time you're walking around, you have 10 minutes sitting somewhere, you use that app, but you stay current. You know what's happening around you. But have that brand, build that. And for that, you need to be aware. Who am I? What do I like? What do I want to do? Am I a friendly person? Am I a techie person? Am I a leadership material? What am I? Discover yourself. That's one thing. But other areas as well, like how do I network? What do I say in my elevator pitch? How much should it be? How do I do work life balance? Yes, there are techniques. There is plenty of help. Then we come to the functional skills. Yes. So if I grow, I take a business owner or business unit head role. I'm scared to take because I don't understand business. But no, then that's the functional skill that can be learned. We've done so much of studying and so many exams. This is just a little more of that upskilling that you need to do. And then the management and leadership. So this is the, I've kind of tried to put all the areas together in that slide. Benefits. So how is all this going to help? You could argue that while I keep working, I get exposure, I work in projects, I interact with people, I learn. Definitely, I don't disagree with you. This upskilling is a way of preempting that. It is taking control of what's going to happen to me. If I learn this today, I know that wherever I go, if my husband has to move to the US, for instance, I can still do ABC. It is to give yourself the options, the flexibility. That is the idea of taking control of all of this. Okay? We can wait and go with the flow. No harm at all, but this is taking control. The benefits. Now, all these points here are not mine. They are what I've heard from my learners. I have a screenshot on the last slide where you can listen to what they've said. But the first thing that hits our learners after they've gone through the program is they realize, oh, I'm not alone. These people also face the same insecurities that I do. And that's a aha moment for them. Realizing I'm not alone and I can work along with these people to solve this problem. Suddenly there is a willingness to share, talk about your problems, articulate them, collaborate, exchange information, cooperate. If you all have watched, I don't know if you watched the Indra Noyu's video. She had a video where she said that men support each other. They criticize each other for self-development, for development. Women don't. And I know how it is. It becomes a little more competitive in some cases. So in this environment that we have, and when I bring women together in a virtual classroom, that kind of changes. Everybody steps up and say, okay, we're together now. Let's take this forward back to our organization and start these. Of course, you learn the functional competencies. What are the frameworks? What is cash flow? The simple skills that you need to get comfortable. We don't need to do an MBA, right? All of us don't have the time or the money to, or the, can't put so much of effort to go get another degree. But you still want the skills. So why not use all of these trainings and learnings that you have? Confidence. This is one thing that a lot of people have come back and told me that, Mamta, after going through these exercises, I was able to step up and ask for something. I was able to articulate my pitch in a better way. We talk about, issues come up like women say, I put up this idea, but it was dismissed. And someone else put up an idea and that was accepted. So then we go to the details. So what did you put? Did you have data? Did you have evidence? Was this the way? Did you catch them at the right time? So there's a lot of soft skills, yes, but there's a lot of the right approach, following a framework to do things. And that's where the confidence kind of comes in. We get learners to work on a project. And these projects, we get them to convert it to white papers, which is a contribution straight back to the organization with proposals for some tool or an idea or some measures or an initiative. And some fantastic ideas that come up. And I encourage them to go share those ideas with their managers and pitch it to them, and that helps build confidence. Most of all, it gives you that opportunity. Remember, I think Rich also said getting that opportunity, get up, step up, say yes. Somewhere I feel in our education system, the opportunities should be created for us to go network. How many times we are forced into situations, go attend that conference, go present. Till I came and did my PhD in Singapore, I was never forced to do a presentation, and I would always hate it. Trust me, I hated doing presentations. I used to be so scared. But once I started doing my PhD, I didn't have a choice. They said, you have to present. And that's when I got better and better. So opportunities change a lot of things for us. Opportunity also to pause, to think, where am I? Am I great? Where do I want to be? Reflect, analyze, plan. We kind of don't do that because we are on a day-to-day schedule, waking up, putting our kids, family, this, that, job, promotion. We just get into that kind of a routine. So there's no time to just pause, think, reflect. Skills like how to approach. I think Richa used a lot of terms, and yes, Richa, we cover all of those in terms of soft skills. I recently did a webinar on conflict management and the number of situations that came across. How do I handle this? How do I talk about this? Simple issues. But if we kind of have a framework to deal with them, it becomes so much easier for you, and you kind of refine that framework for yourself, for your role. Learning to say no. How many of you have had this problem? And I've heard this from men, women, any of the learners I've interacted with. Learning to say no. How do I politely decline that I will not be able to fulfill your request because of so and so? That's the biggest takeaway that the women have told me that they've learned. Some of the feedback that I've received and that I've showed here. I'll be sharing the slides with all of you so you can take your time and go through them. But I thought, yeah, it's best you see what they say. Now, all of this together, this is what we put together as a program, and it's a proper certificate program. Like I said, it's 6 months, but it's modular, which means it really depends on which modules you pick and what you want to learn, and that's what determines the duration. But the good thing is the flexibility. You can log in. It's online, a virtual classroom. We have a proper learning management system. You'll have webinars like this. We have global women faculty talking to you. Why global? Because we know when we're saying potential leaders, you have to interact with different cultures, different geographies. So we thought giving you the 360-degree kind of view would really help you. It's a very structured program. Whatever we design, there's a clear outcome, clear objective, structured assessments, grading, and all of that helps. All of that kind of force you to get into and do what you have to do. I showed this to you before. So we have different modules under these the umbrella, the 4 umbrella that I showed. Activities would be discussion topics, specific case studies, scenarios, anything that can bring out the issues and give me an opportunity to share the potential solution. So that's a delivery methodology, anywhere, anytime, and the pedagogy is pretty much all online and webinar based, which all of us are comfortable with. We spend so much time on social media today. Yeah, so I'm still okay to stay and take questions. I'm so sorry, we almost ran out of time. Wishing you all a very happy Women's Day. I'm happy to take any questions or comments or anything at all. Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much, Mamta. That was also really engaging. And yes, it's been so engaging that we're almost out of time, but we can take, maybe a couple of questions on chat. So there is one. Do we need a joint family model for the work-life balance? Anyone wants to take that, or should I?
Okay, up to you, Jessie.
Okay, cool. So I think how you achieve your balance is up to you. But you've got to figure it out, because finally we cannot keep saying that, no, I can't do this and I can't do that. You have to convert it to I can. So does joint family help? Yeah, certainly, but that's not the only solution. I personally have a dog, a cat, a mother-in-law, a mother, and a child living at home at the moment. Works for me, doesn't always work for everybody.
Yeah, and if I might add, there was this note, yes, note by Indra Nui, who was talking about this kind of model eventually. that engage the grandparents. A lot of them are lonely. So if we could kind of build a city, she used that analogy, build a city where you have these working adults with children, and then the grandparents. They could be anyone's grandparents, right?
Hmm.
And how about they help you look after the kids? I thought that was fantastic, and
Yeah.
taking us back to the joint family, which is not possible for me living outside of India. It's not possible, but utilize the resources that you have in a city that you are in. So yes,
Yeah.
Aslam, I would say yes.
Yes, same here, Mamta and Jesse. I also feel, because I think it's an infrastructure we build for each other, and especially women aspiring for career, they need to have an infrastructure around. And this kind of a family does help, and I have personally done it for myself, so I really believe in it. And just adding on to the same thoughts, because it helps, but at the same time, our parents are not just a support, they are more than that.
Yeah, so there's a next question, which is when opportunities are provided to women, 20% of the women in leadership, the way it is perceived by the male gender is you don't really deserve it. It's like, is it a quota kind of a question?
It's under means her ability and identity.
Sorry? Richa, Mamta, who would like to try
Oh
that
yeah,
one?
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
fine.
I don't mind that. Okay.
Sure, Mamta.
So, Vasavati, it's obvious, right? And I agree that that is how you'd feel. In fact, I've had so many such discussions with my husband. He would come back to me and complain that that's so and she's on maternity leave, and I had to step in and come. And once I started working on women's leadership, I'd go and talk to my male friends, and they would say all along in school we were treated as the noisy ones, and we get scolded, and the girls were always protected. So at workplace, obviously, we are going to show off and things like that. So you're right, that is how it's going to be felt. We do not want to do that. The idea is you don't want to do that. It does not have to be so obvious. If everybody could just understand what are the challenges both are facing. So a lot of the programs, we don't call them, we call them inclusivity. So bring in the men, bring in the women. Let's all talk together. Obviously, you in your house, you'd understand what your wife is going through. The same way I know what my husband goes through when he has to travel. So if both are aware of each other, why can't we take that awareness, that support into the workplace? If we were able to do that, we wouldn't need the quota and things like that, right? So I agree it should not be the way, but to take that step forward, that is what we are resorting to. I think it should be more in terms of measures rather than percentages. And measures also, like Risha mentioned, I know Deloitte does this. Whatever benefits are given to women are given to men as well. And I love that. That's being inclusive. So I agree with you.
So, Mamta, we do the same at Schneider. We give similar benefits. So we don't say it's only for men. We are a gender neutral organization. And and that's how we approach this kind of concerns. So I can completely relate to what you're saying. Yeah.
So I wanted to comment on that. So one of the biggest examples of this has been that your women independent directors have to be there, right? And there's always a question of, well, isn't that like a quota? But the fact is that most of the boards which now have a woman independent director never had one and would never have had one if they had a choice. So possibly this is the only way that they will actually understand that. And I've actually been asked this question saying, so what is it that you do? You're a rubber stamp, right? Because, that's what you do, right? I'm like, no, actually, that's not how it works. I'm actually a full-fledged board member. I don't actually just sign off. It's not that. So in many ways, a quota is a first step, possibly. But that does not make the person who is there because of that any less qualified. I mean, people are not really putting in somebody who they want as a rubber stamp, hopefully. But even if they did, they soon find out the error of their ways. So that's the other way to look at it. And I know that in companies as well, people are like, oh my God, our entire executive team has no women. Let's find 3 women. But then you also go back to why don't they have any women in the first place? And it's not just women. I think, we have to talk diversity as a whole. And we also now need to talk about neurodiversity, gender diversity, a whole bunch of things. Often the first person is asked that question, but not the third person.
Yep.
So with that, I'm sorry, we are out of time. We will be sharing the text, we will be sharing the recording. Thank you, all of you, for joining us today. It's been a very fantastic and engaging discussion. And stay in touch with us, and we will be having other webinars as well, and be happy to have you participate. And of course, hope that tomorrow is the first day that you really start owning your destiny and moving towards that. Thanks everyone, and happy Women's Day as well. Bye bye.
Thank you all.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Mamta. Thanks, JC. Thanks, everybody. Thank you.